Obesity costs this country about $150 billion a year, or almost 10% of the national medical budget. Approximately 1 in 3 adults and 1 in 6 children are obese. Obesity is epidemic in the United States and a major cause of death attributable to heart disease, cancer, and diabetes.
If you're like most Americans, you are struggling with your weight, or should I say your weight is struggling with you. According to Healthline, approximately 32% of Americans are overweight and 36% are classified as obese. This is nothing new. We've heard about the obesity epidemic over and over again, so why haven't we done anything about it? In spite of the risks to heart health and various other markers that are triggered by our weight, America's love affair with food continues. Some of you are saying, wait a minute, how about waist a minute? That's right, look at your waistline. Because if you're in the top 10% of the population with a large waist circumference, you are 20 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than people in the lowest 10%. The interesting thing about obesity is that it's not a respecter of persons or class. From 1971 to 1974, it was pretty clear that people who made less money were the people creating the obesity crisis. Within 30 years, people that are now higher on the social strata are suffering the impacts of obesity, making it an equal opportunity challenge for everyone. There are numerous contributing factors associated with obesity, but one of the biggest contributing factors is choice, what we choose to consume and how much we choose to consume. One of the key factors in obesity is sugar. That's right, good old glucose that's found in the blood of humans and animals. So when we talk about diabetes, we're referring to the prolonged presence of glucose in the body. So now that we understand the role of glucose in the body, how do we get fat? Well, if you recall, that old hormone called insulin is released every time sugar is detected in our bloodstream. So in essence, it's like a commander telling the sugar what to do. And under normal conditions, the sugar in your blood is converted to glycogen and stored in your liver and muscle. Well, when these storage areas fill up, the sugar is converted to fat. So how do we combat fat? Well, it comes down to making lifestyle changes. One popular method that we'll discuss is how to reduce fat by intermittent fasting.
Well, the greatest caloric restriction is no calories at all. Fasting has been branded the next big weight loss fad, but has a long history throughout various spiritual traditions practiced by Moses, Jesus, Mohammed, and Buddha. In 1732, a noted physician wrote, "He that eats till he is sick must fast till he is well." Today, about 1 in 7 American adults report taking that advice, using some sort of fasting as a means to control body weight. Case reports of the treatment of obesity through fasting date back more than a century in the medical literature. In 1915, 2 Harvard docs indelicately described 2 extraordinarily fat women, one of whom was a, quote, veritable pork barrel. Their success led them to conclude that, quote, moderate periods of starvation constitute a perfectly safe, harmless, and effective method for reducing the weight of those suffering from obesity, unquote. The longest recorded fast, published in 1973, made it into the Guinness Book of World Records. To reach his ideal body weight, a 27-year-old man fasted for 382 days straight, losing 276 pounds, and managed to keep nearly all of it off. He was given vitamin and mineral supplements so he wouldn't die, but no calories for more than a year. In their acknowledgments, the researchers thanked him for his cheerful cooperation and steadfast application to the task of achieving a normal physique. A U.S. Air Force study of about 20 individuals at least 100 pounds overweight, most unable to lose weight on previous diets, were fasted for as long as 84 days. 9 dropped out of the study, but the 16 who remained were unequivocally successful at losing between 40 and 100 pounds. In the first few days, subjects were noted losing as much as 4 pounds a day, and that was mostly water weight as the body starts to adapt. But after a few weeks, they were steadily losing about a pound of mostly straight fat a day. The investigator described their starvation program as a dramatic and exciting treatment for obesity. Of course, the single most successful diet for weight loss, namely no diet at all, is also the single least sustainable. What other diet can cure morbid obesity in a matter of months, but practically be guaranteed to kill you within a year if you stick with it? The reason diets don't work almost by definition is that people go on them, and then they go off of them. Permanent weight loss is only achieved through permanent lifestyle change. So what's the point of fasting if you're just going to go back to your regular diet and gain it all right back? Fasting proponents cite the psychological benefit of realigning people's perceptions and motivation. Some individuals have resigned themselves to the belief that weight loss for them is somehow impossible. They may think they're just made differently in some way, and no matter what they do, the pounds don't come off. But the rapid, unequivocal weight loss during fasting demonstrates to them that with a large enough change in eating habits, it's not just possible, but inevitable. This morale boost may then embolden them to make better food choices once they resume eating. The break from food may allow some an opportunity to pause and reflect on the role food is playing in their lives, not only the power it has over them, but the power they have over it. In a fasting study entitled Correction and Control of Intractable Obesity, a person's personality was described as changing from one of desperation with abandonment of hope to that of an eager extrovert full of plans for a promising future. She realized that her weight was within her own power to control. They concluded this highly intellectual social worker has been returned to a full degree of exceptional usefulness. After a fast, newfound commitments to more healthful eating may be facilitated by a reduction in overall appetite reported post-fast compared to pre-fast, at least temporarily. Even during a fast, hunger may start to dissipate within 36 hours. So challenging people's delusions about their exceptionality to the laws of physics with a period of total fasting may seem barbaric, but in reality this method of weight reduction is remarkably well tolerated by obese patients. That seems to be a recurring theme in these published series of cases. In this influential paper, Treatment of Obesity by Total Fasting for up to 249 days, the researchers remarked that the most surprising aspect of the study was the ease with which the prolonged fast was tolerated. All their patients evidently spontaneously commented on their increased sense of well-being throughout the process, even in some cases frank euphoria. Though it's essential that fasting should only be prescribed under close medical supervision, they concluded that they were convinced that it is the treatment of choice, certainly in cases of gross obesity. Fasting for a day can make people irritable, moody, and distracted, but a few days in, many report feeling clear, elated and alert, even euphoric. This may be in part due to the significant rise in endorphins that accompanies fasting. Mood enhancement during fasting is thought to perhaps represent an adaptive survival mechanism to motivate the search for food. This positive outlook towards the future may then facilitate the behavioral change necessary to lock in some of the weight loss benefits.
At its simplest, obesity results from people consuming more calories than their bodies burn. But it's a more complex problem than that. People didn't decide to become overweight. Their weight gain is a consequence of complicated changes in the environment, where food is more readily available and opportunities for physical activity are lacking.
Societal, economic, cultural conditions have all contributed to the rise in obesity. One contributing factor is the fact that the way we eat has changed over the last 50 years. Americans are eating more processed foods and eating out a lot more frequently. The foods that are offered in restaurants, snack shops, and in vending machines are higher in sugar, calories, and fat than what we typically prepare in our own homes. We are surrounded by food. We're constantly bombarded by it. We're consuming larger portion sizes and more calories than ever before.
Diabetes affects the pancreas, an organ of the digestive system. An important function of the pancreas is to make hormones that regulate blood glucose levels. Insulin is produced by beta cells, which cluster in groups called islets. Insulin is a hormone that lowers blood glucose levels. After a meal, glucose reaches the pancreas via the bloodstream and is released from capillaries into the pancreatic tissue. This triggers the release of insulin, which is stored inside the beta cells. Insulin travels to other parts of the body via the bloodstream with three main destinations: muscle, fat, and liver. Insulin helps these tissues to store glucose as an energy source. Shown here are muscle cells. Insulin arrives through the fine capillary network that traverses the muscle fibers. The surfaces of muscle, fat, and liver cells are covered with insulin receptors. When these receptors bind insulin, they signal to the cells to release special glucose transport channels onto the cell surface. These channels enable glucose to gain entry into the cells, allowing the cells to store glucose as energy for future use. In this way, insulin acts to regulate blood glucose levels. In type 1 diabetes, a patient's own immune cells mistakenly attack the insulin-producing beta cells. Type 1 diabetes is referred to as an autoimmune disease because the body's immune system attacks its own cells in error. Over the course of the disease, a patient's immune cells will systematically but mistakenly kill nearly all the beta cells, shrinking the islet but leaving all other cells intact. The few beta cells that remain in the pancreas have a severely reduced capacity to produce insulin. The death of the pancreatic beta cells and the consequent inability to produce insulin is at the core of type 1 diabetes. Without insulin, the body cannot regulate blood glucose levels, and the high glucose levels damage many tissues throughout the body.
Fat loss is a pretty popular topic, and for most people, it's their main goal. They just want to lose fat. It is true that the majority of the population tends to carry too much body fat, and they're eager to lose it somehow. Losing fat does take some effort, but it's not nearly as difficult as actually losing your fat cells. This video talks about why you can't lose fat cells after gaining fat. and what to do about it.
Fact.
One 2008 study claimed that the number of fat cells stays constant around adulthood in lean and obese individuals, even after marked weight loss. Instead, you gain most of your fat cells in your childhood and adolescence. During adulthood, the number stays relatively constant unless you go through massive swings in weight. Your fat cells are in constant turnover and renewed at a rate of approximately 10% every year at all ages and body mass indexes. Losing fat mass involves shrinking the already existing fat cells, but not losing them beyond the basal rate of cell turnover. When you gain weight, these fat cells will increase in size. There are also certain fat cell precursors that will be turned into adipose tissue after gaining weight. If you lose body fat and shrink fat cells, the body responds by triggering mechanisms that make further fat loss harder and promote easier weight regain. For example, losing weight decreases leptin the satiety hormone and increases ghrelin the hunger hormone. Your fat cells basically scream out to be refilled because they want you to gather as much energy as possible. That's why the majority of people can't maintain their new weight and they tend to rebound. If you want to avoid excess amounts of fat cells, then you shouldn't get fat in the first place, especially in your childhood and adolescence. Otherwise, fat loss is gonna be much harder for you in your later life. But this doesn't mean that you can't lose weight or get lean. Losing fat and getting lean is not the same as losing fat cells. The cells are just containers of fat and lipids that fill up based on your energy influx. If you burn more energy than you consume, the body will pull the calories it needs from the fat cells, thus they shrink in size. As a result, you will also look leaner. You can have a ton of fat cells and still look lean with a six-pack because the fat cells have shrunk down and they don't contain excess energy. Likewise, you can have little to no fat cells but still look chubby because the individual fat cells are enlarged and they carry more fat per cell. So anyone can lose fat regardless of their fat cell composition.
Do it.
Amounts. If you want to shrink fat cells, then you have to gradually lose your body fat and get to a lower body weight and prevent rebounding, because this kind of yo-yo dieting is also actually teaching your body to get fatter and regain it more easily. Gaining weight, rebounding and yo-yo dieting is the worst thing that you can do because you're actually creating new fat cells that you previously didn't have. Eating a high-fat diet with high insulin and carbs is the go-to method for making animals obese and sick in research. They're basically put on a junk food diet and they get fat really fast, as was shown by the previous study on the mice. This pattern is evident in humans as well, who eat a lot of processed foods and combine fats and carbs together. Basically, the fat plus carb combo is super obesogenic and promotes the growth of fat cell precursors in a calorie surplus because of the activation of AKT2 and insulin. It's less obesogenic in a calorie deficit because of decreased influx of energy, but it will still promote fat cell proliferation in people who lack the stimulus for mTOR in muscle cells.
Where's the Twinkies?
Starts in the beginning. So what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is an eating pattern, I will call it, instead of a diet, that cycles between periods of fasting and periods of eating. You have what are called fasting windows and you have eating windows. The goal is to take regular breaks from calories. That is it. That's what intermittent fasting is. These breaks can last from anywhere between 12 and 36 hours. Most would argue that you get most of your fasting benefits if you try to get to at least a 16-hour fasting window, but a 12-hour window is a phenomenal place to start, and then you can work your way towards that. Fasts that exceed 36 hours aren't known as intermittent fast. Those are known as what are called extended fast. So the key is that it's not about what you eat, it's about when you eat. You delay, you don't have to deny. Intermittent fast doesn't even have to be a zero-calorie fast. Now, fasting purists don't believe this and would argue that against that, but we're here to focus on weight loss. We aren't here to get good at fasting. We're here to get good at losing weight, especially in the beginning. So some protocols like modified or hybrid alternate day fasting protocols and the 5-2 protocol allow you to eat up to 25% of your calories on a fasting day. Again, you don't have to call it fasting. You can call that a fasting mimicking diet if you want. You can call it calorie restriction, but that's what it is. This is really good news though, especially for people that want to try longer fasts, 24 to 36 hour fasts, but they have to take medication. So you can still fast just in your own way. Other protocols are practiced on a daily basis. So I've been talking about fasts that last 24 to 36 hours so far. But with these daily fasting methods, you simply eat all of your calories in a set time window. The key examples would be what's known as 16-8, which means that you fast for 16 hours a day and then you eat in an 8-hour eating window. Then you have 24 fasting, also known as the warrior diet, where you fast for 20 hours a day and have a 4-hour eating window. And then you have OMAD, which stands for 1 meal a day, where basically you would eat a meal, or you'd fast for 22 or 23 hours and then have a 1 or 2 hour eating window. So lots of different ways to fast. Fasting has been a practice throughout our history as a species, right? Sometimes our hunter-gatherer ancestors couldn't find anything to eat. As a result, humans adapted to be able to function without food for extended periods of time. This is why we have fat in the first place. In that picture, that's a 5-pound blob of fat. That's why we have fat in the first place. So you could make an argument, I do make the argument that fasting from time to time is actually more natural than eating 3 meals a day or 3 meals and three snacks a day to stoke your metabolism. There's nothing natural about constantly eating because our ancestors would not have done that. They would have had periods where they didn't have food. Fasting is also done for religious or spiritual reasons. So there's biological reasons that fasting works with our bodies, but there's also religious or spiritual reasons to fast. Everything from Ramadan to Lent, right? Every major religion incorporates fasting in some way. Fasting, in the end, is a powerful tool, right? But a tool is only as good as the person that knows how to use it. So fasting isn't magic, but it is a great way for most people to get in a calorie deficit, lose weight as quickly and easily as possible, and then keep that weight off. So what does the science say? I'm going to cover tons of science in my program. I like to show you the actual studies so you can find them yourself if you want to. So this study, scientific evidence of diets for weight loss, different macronutrient composition, intermittent fasting, and popular diets. So what does this say? Let me take a sip quick. In the long term, current evidence indicates that different diets promoted similar weight loss, and adherence to diets will predict their success. So it's not saying that fasting is better than other ways to diet, but if fasting is the best way for you to sustain your diet and stick to it, that adherence is what will lead to the success. But I don't care how you lose weight. Find the way that you can lose it safely and quickly and easily and keep it off for the long haul. I just think for most people, intermittent fasting is a great thing to try. All right, so what are your key takeaways here? Intermittent fasting focuses more on when you eat than what you eat. That's really good news for people that don't like to be on overly restrictive diets 24 hours a day. What are your action steps? Prepare to shatter some of the most common myths and misconceptions about intermittent fasting, and then think about any fears or concerns that you have about fasting. Write them down. Okay, I hope this helps. I hope you're ready for a fantastic journey.
Another factor is that people who live in poor and rural communities may have less access to quality grocery stores that sell healthy and affordable options. In these areas, it might be easier and cheaper for residents to purchase less healthy foods and beverages.
Other factors such as technology and the way we build our communities has influenced our lives. Both of these factors have left us more sedentary. Families must drive to work and school because it's often too far to walk. Many communities are built in ways that simply make it difficult or unsafe to be physically active. For many families, safe routes for walking and biking to school or play may not even exist. Getting to parks and recreation centers may be difficult, and public transportation may not even be available. And we spend a lot of time sitting in front of screens for work and for entertainment. Also, too few students get daily quality physical education in schools.
There is no single or simple solution to the obesity epidemic. It's going to take solutions at many levels in order to resolve the epidemic. What can each of us do as individuals to be healthier? First, we can eat more fruits and vegetables and fewer foods that are higher in fat and sugar. We can also drink more water instead of sugar drinks. Everyone, including adults of all ages and ability levels and children, need to get the recommended amount of physical activity. Parents can listen to their pediatricians and restrict television viewing for their young children to less than 2 hours a day, and we cannot put televisions in our children's bedrooms. How can we work together as communities to resolve the obesity epidemic? Communities can expand access to fruits and vegetables through farmers markets programs like this one in Brownsville, Texas.
The market was designed for the sole intent of reducing obesity rates and improving diabetes rates in our community.
There's a wide range of people who come to the market from different walks of life.
Low-income families who may not be able to afford some of the fruits and vegetables. The voucher program has been very instrumental.
Communities can also advocate for quality nutrition programs and physical education in their school systems. One way to do that is through school health advisory councils.
The School Health Advisory Council is something that doesn't cost any money, and it is relatively little amount of time, and it brings together a diverse group of people from the community and the schools.
I like to be healthy because I want to be big and strong.
Because schools face so much pressure to try to do so many other things, the School Health Advisory Council is the perfect way for schools to achieve it.
Local governments and communities can play an important role in developing environments that encourage and support active living. They can increase opportunities for physical activity by encouraging mixed-use development to allow for easy access to schools, businesses, parks, and grocery stores. They can implement traffic safety measures and crime prevention strategies. Building bike paths, sidewalks, and crosswalks will foster safe and easy access to more physical activity. States and local governments can provide incentives to existing markets to offer healthier food, and they can also provide incentives for new businesses to establish their supermarkets in low-income areas.
The quality of the produce is much better, and of course it's least expensive than at the corner stores, and this is very helpful to the neighborhood, I think, to overall be a more healthier neighborhood.
I had lived in Philadelphia all my life, and I had never was a market like this around here that we can walk to. That's a convenience, and on top of that, healthy foods.
Employers can offer worksite health programs that offer a variety of options for their employees, such as this program in Austin, Texas.
This used to just be a place to come to work and go home, and now it's a place where you can come and get in your workout and get in your support group for your weight loss. And instead of just going to the short order cook and having a burger and fries, you can have a nice, healthier sandwich. And that's made a difference.
In addition, employers can make it easier for women to continue breastfeeding when they return to work, because babies who are breastfed are less likely to become overweight later in life.
There is no simple solution to the obesity epidemic. People need to make better choices, but we also have to change those choices in our schools, in our childcare settings, in our work sites, and in our communities.